Redditors who are married to Karens, how is it like? My mom's a Karen. She is self-aware she is a Karen. My siblings and I send her memes about it. When my stepdad divorced her last summer, we were all amazed he lasted 17 years, to be honest. None of us like going out with her, it's terrible, and my husband just straight up tells her no, you aren't talking to the manager when we go in a place. I'll tell you guys a story my step told us. They are farmers and own a small beef and bee farm. They have a store they go to for bee supplies. The owner called my stepdad and asked him to please be the one to pick up their stuff because his staff was tired of dealing with my mom. He is the only one who went to the store for the next 5 years. My mom is a Karen. She thinks the world is supposed to cater to her, serve her, and everyone else is wrong. Once we went to Carl's Jr. She ordered 4 burgers for the 4 of us. She pulls one out of the bag while the guy is getting our drinks and hides it. She complains that he forgot a burger. She pulls them out one by one and counts it in front of him. It's obviously missing because she hid it, and he's swearing up and down he put them all in the bag. I'm stunned speechless, and it happened so fast. She got a free burger and left as we drive off. I'm just staring at her, and she opens it up to eat it on the drive home. And she ate her actual burger like the 5th one never existed. I can't even explain how she is when she's in the hospital. She treats it like a luxury stay in a hotel. My best friend married the Karen of Karens. She's the absolute worst. She's mean and rude to everyone, me, him, our Facebook friends, wait staff, everyone. Even her kids. Their disposition when she's around changed completely. A few of us have subtly pointed things out to him, and he always says everyone is overreacting or something to that effect. So, one day over beers, I finally told him how we all felt. He begged me to. I laid it out clearly and concisely, gave him concrete examples, and explained to him why none of his friends will hang out with him anymore. He agreed, cried, was apologetic but shocked that it was as bad as it was. And that was the last time he and I hung out, 3 years ago. We work together, so I see him all the time, and we're polite and friendly, but our friendship is ruined. I hate his wife and I hate Karens. My mom is a literal Karen, as in, it's her name. But she's like a bizarro Karen. She will constantly ask to speak with managers and supervisors and bosses. But when said managers arrive, she unloads about the employee helping her out was fantastic, hardworking and friendly. And then she'll spend 20 minutes trying to figure out if she and the manager know someone in common. 9 times out of 10 they do. As a kid it would embarrass me. As an adult it's one of my favorite things about her. She makes people feel good about the work they do, and it's really special to watch how wonderful she makes people feel. Plus she's got long gorgeous silver hair. Coworker of mine is married to a Karen. He tells us stories multiple days a week how she drives to 4 different grocery stores and harasses the employees because their stock is low on the specific item she wants. Not married to one, but my aunt is. My uncle is this soft-spoken giant. He never stands up to her in any way. Except once. At their daughter's wedding, she was about to interrupt the ceremony to close a window because she was chilly. Everyone sitting close could hear her whisper, "I'm going to do it, but I don't want to be an asshole." My uncle, in a calm quiet tone, says quickly, "Why stop now?" Almost as if his filter just missed this one. I swear I could hear my dad snort 2 rows back trying to hold in laughter. Karen was not happy. Not married but dated a male Karen for 8 years. He was a semi-successful business owner who was twice my age, and I was young and dumb for a lack of a better word. The gist of our relationship was him trying to take over every part of my life. For instance, he would order for me at restaurants and would dissuade me if I wanted to try something new. If I had a problem with something it would be brushed off, but if he had a problem then he had to talk to a manager. Not knowing any better, I just thought he was very particular and even started copying some of his tendencies, like speaking up when I felt I wasn't getting the right service when I was out on my own. I realized who he was when we were flying back from Vegas and our luggage was heavier than when we flew in. Obviously we'd bought extra things which made up for the weight difference, so as he demanded to know an explanation from the check-in clerk as to why, if it was the same luggage, would it somehow weigh more, I innocently answered that it must have been the extra shoes and clothes. He was quiet and paid up. Later he told me not to do that again, as he knew the reason why the luggage was heavier. He was just trying to get away with not paying. At that moment a bulb went off in my head. This man who'd spent $1,500 on a stripper for his friend was making an already stressful job more stressful for the clerk in order to avoid paying $60. We broke up soon after, and I checked myself on the Karen tendencies he'd rubbed off on me. Not married to a Karen, but married someone with a Karen for a sister. SIL is the freaking worst. I hate more than anything going out to dinner with her, listening to her order food and talk to the servers. Holidays are also terrible. She sends out long lists of expected gifts list. She celebrates every holiday and birthday specifically for presents, even when it's not appropriate. Funny thing is, one time I was away from the dinner table when the bill came, and SIL waited for me to return to pay the bill by actually handing it to me. She didn't give it to her sibling, my SO, or pay her half, but expressly handed it to me to pay. BTW, her husband is an idiot and they are a match made in heaven. Last year I was having dinner with a friend and her husband. He's a real fucking charmer, that guy. Usually spends his days with us making snarky comments to his wife and everyone else with an opinion. So we went to this tiny local restaurant, like 50 people crammed in a living room, one of the best restaurants in town. They serve local food and people from all over the world stand in line to get a seat. It's cheap, but the best. So this guy complains about it being small and hot. He complains about the tables, gossiping about the other people around him. They could perfectly well hear him. I'm usually the kind of guy who keeps his mouth shut because I know speaking up won't change a thing. I had a Karen for a mother, a single mom. I know when I should shut up. But I'm getting all worked up and he starts insulting his wife. People look at him from all over the restaurant. Like really mean comments, telling us weird things about her personality, their sex life. It was my breaking point. I told him to quit it and be nice. He goes all attack mode on me. So I raise my voice and tell him that if he can't be nice, I'm leaving. Look around me to the people with a kinda sorry to disturb you look and took my leave. Told the staff the food was great and that I 100% would come back, but bring better company. They looked happy about that. Went to smoke outside. My partner and friend came out and I told them he's a prick and I'm not dealing with him anymore. I went home. He was not amused, neither was anyone else, but I went home, had a beer and played some video games while they had to bite their tongue. Duck that guy. Happy to never see him again. I taught my nephews, ages 9 and 11, about Karens last year when they stayed with us for a week after school let out. After describing traits and observing them in the wild, they asked somewhere around day 2, "Is our mom a Karen?" My reply: "You words, not mine. My mom can be difficult sometimes, but isn't a Karen." When my sister and I were in our mid-20s, my mom had to start caring for our grandma. After a particularly stressful Saturday afternoon at my grandma's home, we were all carpooling back to my mom's house and she said to my sister and I, "If I ever start acting like grandma, you better tell me." My sister and I sat there in complete silence. After a couple beats she yelled, "I do not act like my mother." It made my sister and I laugh until we cried. Mostly because, yes, she does act like her mother. Not married. 4 years of a toxic relationship though. I broke up with her on Monday, again. We're kinda ducked financially because of this lockdown, so we are just feeling things out for a month before we decide for sure. This cycle is on repeat. I constantly have to cut her off and speak over her because of the way she treats people. Waiters, sales assistants, gym staff, neighbors, landlords, randoms we meet in bars, etc. Note: we were both waiters at the beginning of our relationship, so she has worked in the industry, but still lacks empathy. She blames the waiter if something is out of stock, etc. My second major issue: we are both English second language teachers. She teaches kindergarten, while I teach high school. Now that we are working from home, I hear how she speaks to her students, and it really opened up another aspect of her personality that I don't like. She will berate a student for not understanding instead of evaluating her ability to explain. Shitting on 3-year-olds in their second language doesn't fly with me. A lot of her behavior stems from a self-defense mechanism due to insecurity, but that's not an excuse. She doesn't realize how mean she is to people, including myself. I'm a people pleaser that would rather sacrifice my own comfort than someone else's. She expects me to be an asshole to people because I'm a biggish guy with tattoos. I don't exactly look soft. It's toxic as hell. Please help. My ex-wife could be a Karen, and this was one of her triggers. What made it worse is that usually it would stem from the simplest of things. All the usual suspects that make people insecure, like obvious rejections, insults, failure. She managed like a normal person, but she would find those things in almost any situation. An example would be she missed her train home and called if I could pick her up from the next town over rather than wait for the next train, a whole 20 minutes. When I got there, she was waiting on the side of the road and I could not park properly. So I blocked the road and waited for her. She just stood there. When I asked what the problem was, she complained a gentleman would open the door. Once in the car, she then complained that I took ages and why can't I greet her lovingly. I didn't really care by then, but not once did she even thank me. I would have just preferred she did not default berate me. After many situations like that, I realized everything I was putting in the relationship as a people pleaser would come back as punishment from the Karen. Anyway, ex-wife now. I don't regret marrying her. I do regret staying with her longer than I should. That is the only advice I can give. When I dated a toxic person, I found out that every time we were about to break up and she would become nice and caring, I would feel that although all my rationality said, this relationship sucks, I would have an irresistible impulse to try to make it one more time, as all the incredible stress I had at that moment could be easily solved by just saying, okay, don't break up, and that maybe everything would be okay this time. She wasn't evil, she just had some problems, and may one day solve them. I believe it is the same mechanism as an addict, who during withdrawal convinces himself that, although he knows the drug is killing him, this time is okay, just to escape this momentary suffering. So I would advise to be aware of that impulse, next time you try to fix things. Engaged to one, she was raised as a princess by her military-raised father. However, she's super down to earth, but God forbid you work in the service industry and mess something up. She worked at IHOP during college, so it humbled her compared to her family. She just writes reviews now, good or bad, and emails corporate to complain. If something is wrong with my food, she refuses me to sit there and eat it. Which I hate, but I have gotten her better about it, I believe. So maybe she is just a recovering Karen at this point. SIL is a Karen, and her name is very close to Karen, one of her most recent masterpieces. Her daughter, my niece, had a big choir performance one night. My family, her family, and my FIL and MIL were going to meet for dinner, and then go to the show. My neighbor owns a very nice Italian restaurant in town, and he arranged for us to have a big table ready when we got there. We, my family of 4, are halfway to the restaurant when my wife decides to check in with her sister with a text message. Karen immediately calls back and casually says she's running late, she is always late, and that it would be best if we drove to their house to pick them up. To this day I don't understand how that will help us when she's already late and we had a rather tight window to have dinner, but Karen throws a shit fit when my wife pushes back. So we turn around, pick them up and drive to the restaurant. We sit down, and she scans the menu, asks the waitress questions, tells her a couple times she's not ready to order and needs a few minutes. Meanwhile we are all openly reminding her that we are on a tight window. Doesn't matter. Karen will not be rushed. It should be noted that my neighbor's restaurant has a single-page menu that doesn't change, and Karen has been to this restaurant many times. By the time she decides what she wants to order, we realize we now will not have time to eat. She gives all sorts of shit to the waitress demanding to-go boxes for our meals that are just now being served. My neighbor then came to our table to figure out what was going on, and she immediately stood up to try to explain what was going on, and threw the waitress under the bus. As we were leaving, I pull my neighbor and the waitress aside to tell them what really happened, profusely apologize, tell them it absolutely was not their fault at all. My mom is a bit of a Karen, and we're pretty much no contact now, so that should tell you everything you need to know. Whenever we go out to eat it's always too cold. They don't have the brand of sparkling water she likes. They've put ice in her drink when she didn't want it. She always has to make some kind of modification to her order, etc. The list goes on. It got to the point where if we were out shopping and she said she needed to return something, I'd just go somewhere else because I couldn't stand watching her be rude and argue with the staff. My parents are divorced and I live with my dad now instead. Part of the reason I barely see my mom is because I'd have to meet her in public, go for a coffee or something, and I just can't deal with the way she behaves in these places, so I don't go.